Every time a new Smash game comes out, the hardcore fans come together over the course of multiple years to find the best, most fair, fun, and agreed upon rules to throw money at in tournaments. Stock count, timer, and most importantly, stage lists are all put together to solidify how we play competitive Smash. Stages, although they can be hotly contested for years like an Ultimate, have a limited pool to reasonably choose from in each given game. But what if the players had the power to make their own stages? That is exactly the case in the premier Smash Bros. Mod, Project M. Built for the community, by the community, PM has shaped, reshaped, and reshaped again its competitive stages over the past nearly 15 years with the power of creating custom stages. And yes, the title is accurate. Final Destination, one of, if not the most iconic stage in competitive Smash, is totally banned in major singles tournaments. If you enter a major PM tournament in the year 2025, you cannot play on FD. So how did we get here? And with the ability to make your own stage, how many stages have been used in major competitive Project M tournaments? Yeah, that many. As a reminder, this is just for major tournaments. If this included stages featured at the local and regional level, well, things would get a bit out of hand. Before I go any further, I must say this video isn't possible without the Reddit thread by Grab Some Eyes, which did like a huge amount of the hard work for the first 5 years of the game. Now let's break this down. While some people don't want to count the demo era of Project M for these types of lists, as the game wasn't properly released, there were over 3 years of PM tournaments before version 3.0, the first complete version of the game. It was clear modding stages was at its infancy, but some people were still thrilled to try out the many stages they could mess with. This saw all the competitive stages from Brawl's legal rule set, a stage from Subspace Emissary, some stages ported from Melee and 64 like Fountain of Dreams, Yoshi's Story and Metal Cavern, and some of the first custom maps, like Skyworld without the breakable platforms, the cut-off section of the Rumble Falls stage, as well as a simple mod that would go on to be one of the most universally agreed upon best stages and a pillar of competitive Project M, Frozen Pokemon Stadium 2, aka PS2. A few years after an introduction, it would get a fresh coat of paint with a blue stage and a Master Ball in the middle, and it was set from there. This would be one of the 3 stages that would go on to be universally featured in every single major tournament rule set. Those 3 stages would be PS2, Battlefield, and Smashville. In the turbulent world of communities disagreeing, coming up with crazy new stages, these 3 pillars would hold the ever-conflicting scene balanced. There was one more stage coming out of this era that was worth mentioning, but it's not one you might expect. It's here, Temple M. Just a sliced-off version of the Hyrule Temple, slightly altered, became a sleeper fan favorite among the fledgling PM scene, to the point that it actually reached the attention of Soj, an early developer and community figurehead.
Then I was like, what if I imported the entire map of Skyward Swords, Skyloft, yes. Yes. I imported the entire Skyloft into Brawl, and it somehow worked without much lag. And then I gave it to Mewtwo 2000, and he was like, why did you do this? And optimized it. And eventually it worked, and we made a cool trailer for it, and IGN picked it up and was like, whoa, look at these guys, they're making a crazy mod putting Skyloft in the game. So that's when the popularity really blew up.
The Skyloft stage would be the one featured in the iconic Apex 2014 Grand Finals between Mewtwo King and Armada that would start the whirlwind year for Project M in 2014. The golden era of PM was anything but that in terms of stages. For the majors like Apex, Skatar 3, and more saw 21 legal stages in their lineup, including popular custom stages like Green Hill Zone and WarioWare, as well as less popular options like Dracula's Castle and Norfair. Things had quickly gotten out of hand. Thus, efforts by TK Breezy, Soj, and more aimed to trim the fat on this clearly bloated list. Xanadu started running a 10-stage list, including an update to Norfair with revolving platform layouts. This would begin a long-standing trend of stages keeping the same name, but evolving over time to meet the current community's needs. Many revolving 10 to 11 stage lists would come and go throughout 2014 and 2015. There was another point of contention slowly rising: extreme stage and character counterpicks. This was all led by the then best player at the time in late 2015, Junebug. Junebug was known almost exclusively for his Diddy Kong. We actually just finished up a video a few months ago on Junebug's channel all about how he and a few other talented players have kept Diddy Kong as a relevant PM character for the entire game's lifespan. But real PM fans know that Junebug had one real notable secondary that he would use in very nefarious purposes. In multiple major tournament runs, if his opponent counterpicked WarioWare against him, he would switch to Ganondorf. Ganondorf wasn't even seen as like a super high tier character, but a tanky, hard-hitting character on such a small stage was an incredibly successful strategy in Project M. While this was just one instance, there was actually potential for this to get really dangerous, as sets could turn into counterpick wars back and forth over and over. Tournament organizers decided to step in and actually swap the order in which you would ban stages and characters, so you'd actually have to commit to a character before a stage gets picked. Character counterpicks are still extremely common, but that specific scenario of counterpicking specifically based on the stage is no longer a part of PM. 2016 brought the Project M Championship circuit, and while there wasn't a unified rule set for that circuit, it saw even more normalization as most events featured the same roughly 8 or so stages with very slight variations. A new stage that quickly became commonplace in this era was Delfino's Secret, a completely custom stage based on Mario Sunshine. It was a large stage with a full wall and had a revolving platform layout similar to Norfair seen a few years back. The most common list of the bunch, and the one seen almost exclusively in 2017, actually made its debut in 2015 at Paragon LA, one of the largest and most stacked Project M tournaments of all time. It saw the middle three, Green Hill Zone and Delfinos as starters, and Wario Land, FOD, Dreamland, and Final Destination as counterpicks. It wouldn't take too long though before one list would stick. In the Project M backroom, a team of tournament organizers and community figureheads would work together and try to make that list. What resulted wasn't actually too different from the Paragon LA list, with some minor adjustments to existing stages, like stopping the long platform cycle of Delfinos and making it a standard tri-plat with the top platform rising and falling. But one major change was the debut of a reworked Metal Cavern, taking the Smash 64 stage and turning it into something closer to a frozen Yoshi's Island brawl, but with no full wall. This list would make its debut at Smash and Splash 4. Making its debut at a Super Major was a bold decision, and absolutely there was quite the pushback about it. But after the legendary grand finals between Switch and Lunchables would have its final game take place on Metal Cavern, there was certainly a feeling that this might stick. And for the most part, it did. After Even Bigger Balk, which happened just a few weeks later and still used the old stage list, every major tournament for the next 5 years would run PMBR. While obviously COVID played a part in that length, the entirety of 2019 and the return to tournaments in 2021 and 2022 would keep this stage list going. Local scenes would continue to experiment, but nothing could beat this selection of 10 stages. But after this long amount of time, the flaws started to present themselves. Easily changeable things like blast zones and small platform changes were addressed post-COVID, but certain aspects of the list were drawing issues, mainly in these departments. Before we reach that pesky flat zone over there, let's talk about Delfinos. The task of making a healthy large stage has proven to be a real challenge. Over the course of PM's history, the large stages have tended to be a little too large. Characters were living to absurd percents, and hard camping was a serious issue on most of them. Delfino's combination of being a large stage combined with a wall that goes all the way to the bottom could lead to some absolutely ridiculous recoveries. That, combined with the middle platform rising from the floor, which can disrupt dashes and combos, was also pretty unfavorable. So many stages were thrown around as a potential replacement. There was Castle Courtyard, a long stage with 3 straight platforms, and Criteria, which was just a frozen reskin of that old Norfair stage from a while ago. But one was actually showing a little bit of promise. It was a competitive version of PictoChat. If you played Rivals 2, the stage is actually really similar to Air Armada. It only has a half wall, and the platforms move from the center to each side. Let's check in on that later though, because I think it's finally time to address Final Destination has been in almost every major tournament build throughout PM's lifespan. It's a mainstay, and while it certainly is polarizing, it deserves to be there. Right? Well, a lot of players over the years really started to question it. PM as a game just has stronger characters than Melee overall, with punish games on FD that make the stage an obvious ban in many matchups. And with almost all stage lists over the years having 2 bans, even in best of 5, Final Destination was just barely played on. Combined with Delphinos, a lot of people describe the two as auto bans, as many of the cast preferred less extreme punishes and being able to kill at reasonable percents. So similarly to Delphinos, a replacement was searched for. It started with this: a pirate ship reskin, about the length of FD but with a little platform in the middle. Lots of people actually liked the stage a lot, and it was used in some local scenes for a while. Some further tweaks were made to make the stage a bit shorter and the platform a little longer, but then a new problem appeared. It was looking really similar to Metal Cavern. Now, Metal Cavern was decently well liked among the community and was seen pretty often as a counterpick, but it didn't work well alongside this new stage. They were just too similar. The Project M TOs made the tough decision to cut it and have this new single platform stage be the sole replacement for FD, dropping our list down to 9 for the first time since the Paragon LA list. One last stage swap has been made, and that was for Wario Land. The same stage that stirred up controversy before with its counterpick potential finally had the plug pulled on it a few years ago, particularly after the camping ability was really abused in some matchups. A simple 2-platform full wall was created, initially a reskin of Castle Siege, but given a new coat of paint, and it's been decently well received by the community. That new coat of paint was also given to the PictoChat stage, now a Luigi's Mansion reskin featuring a King Boo that spins when the platforms are moving, and the FD replacement, now a Metroid-themed stage called Frigate Husk, and that's where the Project M stage list is today. I'm oversimplifying the route it took to get here a little bit, since there was a bit of stage shuffling in 2023 and 2024. FOD went away for a little while, but then came back just this year after a code was developed that made it so platforms won't ever come up out of the ground if you're nearby, and players seem to like it a lot more than its alternatives. So that's it. Unsurprisingly, it's been a very turbulent road trying to have a community of players agree on what's the best stage list for a platform fighter with literally limitless possibilities. Some of you might have been surprised to see less wacky variants and more simple stages, but after the Wild West of the first few years of PM, most players are pretty satisfied with non-intrusive stage experience. And don't you think players aren't still flooding Discord chats with their stage ideas and complaints about what's currently around? Stages are always going to be a changing part of the game to reflect the current meta. We're lucky to have the ability to shape this aspect of the game at all. Who knows what stages we'll be seeing in the future of Project M tournaments? Maybe some old favorites make their return to solve meta-defining issues, or maybe the talented modders will create a new concoction that the community can get behind. Thanks for watching. Special shoutouts to our supporters on Patreon who make videos like this possible. Please check the link in the description if you are interested in supporting us. Thank you.